All right, well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure a few more people will join us in the next few minutes, but we're going to go ahead and get started so that we respect Senator Durbin's time. Just a real quick housekeeping thing. I please ask that you all stay muted throughout the meeting until it is time to ask some questions. We just want to make sure there's not any sort of feedback going on with the meeting. If you would like to ask a question later, I would appreciate it if you could send me a private chat with your name and I will add you to the list. I will call on you in order. I already have a few people on there, so just let me know through chat and then we can make sure we run through those questions as smoothly as possible, time permitting, of course. And now I'll go ahead and introduce U.S. Senator Dick Durbin. Thank you so much for joining us. It's such a pleasure to have you here. Obviously, you are the senior senator here in Illinois and the Senate Majority Whip. And I could go on and on with your biography, but I'm sent it out to everyone ahead of time. And I know we have limited time, so I'm not going to go into all the details there, but I'm so pleased that you're here to join us and looking forward to what you have to say.
Thanks. It's great to be with the Macomb Area Chamber of Commerce. I am broadcasting, if you can call it that, on Zoom this morning from my Chicago apartment. I'll be doing some work up here today. First thing in the morning, hopping in a car and driving to Bloomington to take a tour of the Rivian plant, which I haven't been to in 2 years. And I want to salute Mayor Chris Coos and Normal and the other local elected officials. That is nothing short of a miracle to take a auto production facility, the Mitsubishi facility, which was then abandoned, and to turn around and sell it. I can't tell you how many hundreds there must be around the country that wish they had the same experience. And the good news is that the product there is a product of the future, so much so that Amazon has invested $1 billion, that's with a B, into Rivian. They have hired 1,100, 1,200 workers and are about to double their workforce as soon as they get into production in just a few months. And I think the future is bright for them. And what an incentive it is for all of us downstate not to give up, to keep looking for those opportunities where we can sell our skilled workforce and willing workforce and opportunities that we have in downstate Illinois. And I'm sure you're thinking the same thing. We hope we can find our Rivian in the Macomb area. And I hope I can help you do it if that day ever comes. So let me tell you where we're in the meantime. We're facing the worst pandemic in 100 years in America. We have lost 500,000 lives of our people. We have seen so many who are infected. We were hit harder than any other nation up until just recently, and now we're being challenged by a couple others. But with 5% of the world's population, when President Biden took office, we had 20% of the infections and 20% of the deaths from COVID-19 in the world. So we were definitely behind. Biden came in and said, we're going to turn this around and we're going to do it dramatically. And he did it with the American Rescue Plan, spending a substantial sum of money, but I think wisely. First, concentrating on getting vaccine production. I'll give credit to the previous administration for their warp speed program and the development of vaccines. Unfortunately, they didn't develop a plan for distributing vaccines. That fell on Biden's shoulders. He accepted it with the American Rescue Plan, had the dollars to do it. And we're seeing, as you notice, that we're surpassing the original goals set for the number of people vaccinated. We still have to dramatically increase the number of people vaccinated in America. It is the only way to put this pandemic behind us once and for all. People don't want to hear what the senator thinks about the vaccine. They want to hear what their doctor or someone they respect thinks about the vaccine. But I hope that all of you are in a positive frame of mind of encouraging it to your family and friends and workers and others that you'll run into. It is just common sense, and it's been used in hundreds of millions of cases successfully with very, very few, a handful of reactions to it. All right, the other part of the American Rescue Plan was the follow through on President Trump's promise of $2,000 cash payment. This was the $1,400 piece that we included. We also had an extension of unemployment benefits. I know some of you are saying, that's the problem, Senator. You're paying them too much not to work. In some cases, I'm sure that's true, but I don't think that's true in most cases. Last month, 900,000 Americans came off unemployment and went back to work. I think that trend is going to continue. What we did was to extend the unemployment benefits with the federal assistance through September, but then it comes to an end, and there's been no suggestion of extending it at this point. I'll wait and see if that happens. But in most circumstances, people have got to be prepared to get back to work. We also said we're going to keep your health insurance in place if you lost your job in the private sector by picking up your COBRA premiums. That's a big undertaking, but it really meant seamless coverage for these families when they lost the job. We also reduced the amount that individuals had to pay out of pocket to be on the Affordable Care Act insurance exchange. So we're doing our best to cushion the shock of unemployment and limited employment on a lot of families across America. Rental assistance, for example, there's so many different ways we've gone that with SNAP program, food stamp program, all these different ways. We're determined to make sure that this American Rescue Plan crushes this virus and helps the economy get moving again. I mentioned to you the expansion of vaccinations and the $1,400 payment. Now, when it came to small businesses, from the start with the CARES Act, which was a year or so ago till today, we have been providing these forgivable loans to smaller businesses. We have the Paycheck Protection Program I mentioned to you earlier, but we also have been saying that we're going to provide money and forgivable loans to businesses who need it to survive. We want businesses to be here when the economy starts chugging again. And I think that's going to happen, and soon. Just in the city of Chicago, they announced yesterday after the mid-July, they're thinking we're going to have some larger gatherings of people. So I think we're finally seeing things move in the right direction, and I hope that's true. A lot of problems fell into the restaurant sector. Some of my favorites in Springfield and around the state have closed. Whether they'll reopen is a big question. We hope they will. We put $28 billion in the Restaurant Revitalization Fund in the CARES Act that President Biden asked for to try to help those restaurant venues come through. Now let's get down to the local level, really local. If you want to understand the impact of this pandemic, talk to a local mayor or a county commissioner or someone who can tell you what happened. And it's a mixed reaction. Some of the cities and counties have lost dramatically in revenue, sales tax revenue, for example. And some of them have seen even property taxes revenue go down as people have been unable to make payments. We are trying to help them. In the first round in the CARES Act, we sent money to the largest cities and the largest counties and left it up to the states to decide what to distribute on a local basis to the local units of government. I can tell you, I got a lot of feedback on that from mayors who said, they're not helping us. They're taking care of themselves, and that doesn't question that they needed it, but we're not seeing any of it. So we included $13.7 billion in state and local funding in the American Rescue Plan. It's coming back to the state of Illinois and to municipalities. This could be a lifeline. $5.9 billion of that money will be directed to Illinois municipalities. $2 million will be coming back to the city of Macomb. $5.7 million from McDonough County. Now, let me give a lecture that doesn't last long, but I really feel this in my heart of hearts. I asked Brad Cole if I could speak to the Illinois Municipal League after we passed this bill. And I said to the mayors who gathered, you've been through tough times. We're sending you some help. Please don't embarrass me. Please don't embarrass me with the way you use this money. Use it for the fundamental and necessary things of keeping firefighters and policemen and key workers on their jobs, or investments that really make a difference in your community. It just burns me up to hear that some mayor in some place, and this is unfortunately true, said we're going to build the biggest Frisbee park in the history of the United States. I want to wring his throat to think that this man would take that money and turn it into that kind of a craziness. And I'm begging all the local officials, if you don't need it, for goodness sakes, and some have done this, they've told them, we're not going to take it. We don't need the money. If you need it in McDonough County and Macomb, we're there to help you. I want to help you to get through this. And I'm not preaching because I got any suspicion that someone's going to misuse the money. I'm saying it to everybody. We put this money on the table. Let's use it to get our families taken care of and get businesses started and speed up the recovery. So let me close by saying that I think we're on the road to getting back in business. I think we're going to see the roaring 20s. I really believe it. I'm an optimist about America. I believe this country can overcome whatever's thrown at them. And this has been one of the toughest assignments we've ever had. So we need to get the economy back on track. We need your help. We need everybody pulling together. Answer any questions.
All right. Well, I have a list of a few people that had some questions that I was going to call on. Some might be related to what you were just discussing. Some might be a little bit different. But to start, I have Brad Bainter from Western Illinois University. So Brad, if you are on, and I believe I saw you, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Good morning, Senator Durbin, and thank you for the opportunity.
You bet.
Having grown up in rural Illinois and spent most of my life at Western Illinois University, let me preface my question with a couple of things. Last fall, the Illinois Institute for Rural Affairs said rural poverty has now surpassed urban poverty as a problem in Illinois. And you are well aware, I'm sure, of healthcare and education, the whole works, the tremendous shortage we have of teachers now in rural Illinois. And let me add one more statement, coming from a newer think tank, the Alliance for Research on Regional Colleges. They recently said rural regional colleges are economic and cultural engines for the communities they serve, but these institutions receive little public attention for their contributions and are often only noticed when they are financially or operationally challenged. The First Lady has one of her goals is free community colleges for students. And I think we all understand the need for more trades and people going into trades. And not everyone is suited for a four-year public or private university. However, I can only think about what the problems are going to be for the downstate regional universities if we're trying to compete for students who can go free to community college for the first 2 years. It's going to be devastating, and some of us won't survive. Your thoughts on that?
Well, that's a good point, Brad. And I will tell you what I read, and I've just read a few of the early suggestions. 75% paid by the federal, 25% by the state. I am certain as I sit here that with this governor and with any governor, I could sit down and say, this is a real challenge. What about Western and Eastern and Southern and Northern and all the obvious regional universities, some of which are struggling? And this doesn't make it any easier if there is a push to divert students into community college. I think there have to be bridges between this program and the existing undergraduate courses at Western and the regional universities. We have to find a way to make sure at the end of the day that the options are open, not just to community colleges, but the first 2 years of education after high school, that grade 13 and 14, if you will. And it shouldn't be limited just to community colleges. Now, the community colleges do have a valuable, important, and vital function. They can train people for certain work skills that perhaps Western doesn't offer. I have yet to visit a community college, and I haven't been able to in the last year, as you understand, that doesn't have a welding program. I don't know if Western has one, but I know every community college I visited has one. So there are skills that we can develop at the community college level that really will work out. Let me tell you what we have done so far. I think you know the American Rescue Plan. I see the writing here, $39 billion for higher education emergency relief, which provided some money for our Illinois universities to get through this tough period. But looking forward to what you've just suggested, trust me, I will take that question back to the Senate and see that we address the very real issue you raised.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And just so you're aware of this, we did recently establish the Seymour Center for Rural Education at Western, and our goal is to heavily scholarship kids who want to come into Western and be teachers in rural areas of Illinois. So, we're trying to make our importance or our university more important to our region right now.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you're doing it. And you really, can I just say your starting point was so important, and all of us know it from downstate. There are parts of our state that are doing well. I mentioned Bloomington Normal, and this plant that's generating thousands of jobs. But by and large, rural and small town America and rural and small town Illinois is in a struggle. And I know it. I identified it when we got into this pandemic because of the concern of keeping hospitals open, keeping the rural hospital open. We've been lucky so far. Other states that didn't raise Medicaid reimbursement a few years ago lost a lot of hospitals. We have not witnessed that in most areas of downstate. I don't want that to happen. A hospital is critical to our regional development downstate and critical to keeping and attracting good businesses.
Thank you.
Thank you. And it's funny you'd mention hospitals because our next question is actually from Adrian McGregor from McDonough District Hospital. So we kind of transitioned very nicely into that one. Adrian, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Lauren, Senator Durbin, I just want to thank you for your time today. You mentioned healthcare. We've been working very closely with you and your office and your staff. You've been 120% supportive of downstate rural hospitals. And again, I just can't thank you enough for not only sympathizing and understanding some of the challenges that we've had over the past year when we literally had to shut down our surgical services, which is unheard of in most community settings, to just understanding more broadly within the United States as to the closures and your authorship of the Hospital Closure Relief Act. My comment is thank you for your time today. And I would just simply offer, is there anything else on that legislation that you feel that myself or Brian Dietz or anyone on our management team can help you at this point with?
Adrian, thanks for the kind words. And I will tell you that I don't know if you have any National Health Service Corps medical professionals in your area. Do you know of any, Adrian?
We don't on our campus since the guidelines have been changed, but we're constantly evaluating that as an opportunity for us.
Well, let me tell you what we're going to do. I really believe that program, which encourages medical school graduates and licensed physicians, dentists, nurses, mental health counselors to locate in areas of need. I put some substantial funds into that program as part of this American Rescue Plan. So we're not only going to offer to pay off part of their student loan for every year that they work, we hope to extend the period of time that they work to as long as 5 years. Our thinking is if a physician comes out of medical school, gets help paying off their student loan, and stays in an area up to 5 years, willing to do just that, there's a greater likelihood that they will locate there. If it's just an in and out experience, not so much. But if they are in the community for a few years, identify with the community more, with their families and the schools and the churches and businesses and such, we think there's a better chance they'll stay. The one thing I did on a bipartisan basis with Marco Rubio, Republican of Florida, was to put $1 billion into medical school scholarships so that we can get the commitment even earlier in the process from the graduating physicians. So I'm thinking about different angles. If you come up with any, please share them with us. We're both in the same business. Keep these hospitals and the medical community strong downstate.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. If you weren't aware, the Macomb Area Chamber of Commerce has a transportation committee. We are an Amtrak community here. We do depend a lot on the Amtrak train going through here. And we also recently added the 336 bypass, but it was not fully completed. So I have Bruce Biagini. He's the chairperson of our transportation committee, and he has a few things to say. Bruce, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Thank you, Senator Durbin. Just to let you know, I know you've been at it a long time. Well, I've been chairman of this committee for 45 years in Macomb. I was a 2-year term, and it seemed to have evolved into forever. We have two issues. One I want to suggest that I think fits right in with the president's plan. In order to keep our train strong from Chicago to Macomb, I would suggest there be a consideration of extending the train 25 miles to Hannibal. Hannibal is a major national tourist area. It would create bodies for the train, which makes the train require less subsidy. It would also, I think, be able to very marketable, a Chicago to Hannibal. We could call it the Mark Twain for whatever they want to call the train. And we think for 25 miles, you're picking up a major tourist attraction. Missouri would also then have skin in the game on our train. And so that's my first suggestion, is that Amtrak look at extending the train. Instead of ending it at Quincy, take it on down another 20 miles down the river and take it to Hannibal, which has a couple 100,000 tourists a year. and they draw a lot from the St. Louis area, but they don't draw much from the Chicago area. The second thing is to remind you, and I know I have been a squeaky wheel on this, the western half of the state still does not have a north-south 4-lane highway. And Highway 67 is not only inadequate as a 2-lane highway, it's decrepit besides, but I think the administration is going to fix that. We really need to start building. There's been no new lanes added. It basically from the Quad Cities to Metro East, and we really need a north-south 4-lane highway in Western Illinois, and we need to start adding pieces. We've added a piece around Jacksonville, but Jerseyville is a mess in terms of traffic, and I'd like to get that back on the radar stream. I know it's a rural highway, and all the emphasis has been pretty much on heavily trafficked highways. But as I said one time at a committee hearing, if you waited for traffic, there wouldn't be a road west of Philadelphia in America. You've got to build roads in order to build traffic, and we really would like some emphasis on some rural freeways, way back to when we worked with Governor Ogilvy, believe it or not, on the planning of this highway. He was one of the ones that approved it as part of the long-term plan. Again, thank you so much. I appreciate your attention to our area and to the state, and giving us this time. Thank you.
Bruce, 45 years you've been doing this?
Yes.
Well, I wish I could say that you were doing this before I got my driver's license, but it wouldn't be true. I will just tell you that, for you to use the name Richard Ogilvy is really going back into history, but I remember him well. And he did some great things as governor. There was no question.
He was one of the best governors the state ever had.
And that's why he lost.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I should say fortunately, unfortunately, but that's a piece of history I don't want to dwell on. So let me tell you on the Amtrak situation now. I just know this because I talked to my wife this morning. I'm in Chicago and we're traveling down to Springfield tomorrow. And they've limited it now to 2 trains between Chicago and Springfield. And one's 7:30 in the morning and one is 7:30 at night or something. They aren't very convenient. So Amtrak is kind of hanging on, waiting for the ridership to come back. And we put money in the Rescue Act to make sure that they could keep the basics coming together. They're poised, I don't know, but soon to put on some new passenger cars. They've got new diesels, I've noticed as they're going up and down the state. So we're hoping that they'll be part of the Roaring 20s comeback, people using Amtrak. The Hannibal challenge, I think Missouri is pretty notorious for not wanting to cooperate with Illinois on transportation projects. Maybe this is an exception. Maybe they're willing to put some money on the table if it means people will go into Hannibal. So I'd suggest if you've got friends across the river there, if you haven't already, consider broaching the subject with them, see if they're interested in doing that. In the meantime, something's going on in Washington, which you ought to be paying close attention to. My wish is being answered. We are returning to earmarks. Earmarks, Bruce, you remember those? These earmarks are opportunities for members of Congress, the House and Senate, to pick out important things in their district and highlight them in the appropriation bills. We haven't been doing that because some jerks over in the House years ago decided to game the system, and they ended up in jail for it, as they should have. So we said, well, we're going to get away from that. And then we left it up to bureaucrats, and I say that kindly, affectionately, in Washington, and governors to decide what to do. I think we're going to get back in the business of picking projects, and I hope we do. And I think that's going to be good for downstate. Can't promise you what's going to happen, but I will tell you this. This is one senator who knows where Highway 67 is. As a congressman, I had that stretch of 67 south of you there, and I know what it can be if we finally put it together. And yes, we do need a north-south highway in that portion of our state for economic development. And I pushed for the Central Illinois Expressway, which finally connected up Danville to Quincy. And you're exactly right. When we were stuck just a little bit west of Jacksonville for years in court, it didn't look like there was going to be any need for it. That Western Illinois, Quincy area has thrived because of that highway. And when we built it, a lot of skeptics said we'll never need it. Well, we do. And it's serving its purpose of creating good paying jobs in our state. So you got me, Bruce. I'm on your team.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Our next question is from Dustin Berg of Shelter Insurance here in Macomb. So Dustin, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
All right, thank you, Lauren. Senator Durbin, I've been talking with Bill Houlihan. We've had an ongoing dialogue, and I think I saw him on here. Basically, I know you guys put in the let's lower Medicare to 50, that act that you guys have got going on. And with that, I was wondering if it would be possible to include people with permanent disabilities to allow them the same access to Medicare as people who are currently over 65. And one of the reasons I bring this up is because, people with permanent disabilities, 20% of us are employed. That's 80% of 60 million people that are just kind of floating around out there, Social Security, whatever. And they're not joining the workforce because they're afraid of losing medical benefits. And so for me, even if 20% more of those decided to join the workforce because they could maintain their medical benefits in a cheaper way, I think that would be a really positive impact on the country. So I was just wondering if that was something you guys considered, looked at. What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on that, Dustin, are really pretty basic. I think everybody in America ought to have quality, accessible, affordable health insurance. Now, some people say, oh, hell, that Durbin's a socialist. Listen to what he said. He sounds too much like Bernie Sanders. I'm one who said, I'll stick with the Affordable Care Act and let the insurance exchanges prove that we can combine our Medicaid, Medicare programs with private insurance and make this work. Well, we still don't know the answer to that. And it has worked for some, but not for everyone. And you identified a group of people it hasn't worked for as well as it should. As far as I'm concerned, we need to extend the eligibility dates, ages for Medicare, currently 65. I'm on a bill that takes it down to 50. I would buy 60, I would buy 65. I certainly would like to take it down to 50 on a voluntary basis. People decide if they want to sign up for the Medicare version of this program and pay the premium necessary for it, in the belief that a not-for-profit program like Medicare would be more affordable. We're going to prove it one way or the other if we take this approach, and I think it's reasonable. And a lot of people are pushing for it. In terms of extending health insurance for the permanently disabled, I couldn't agree with you more. They're in a position in life where there's no place else to turn. I mean, if they don't have a job that provides health insurance benefits, you're really at the mercy of a system that is not that generous in many circumstances. So I would certainly extend permanent disability eligibility in that conversation. Definitely.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate your thoughts on that.
You bet.
All right, thank you. Next up, we have Kurt Oldfield from Spoon River College. So Kurt, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself, you can ask your question.
Thank you, Lauren, and thank you, Senator Durbin, for taking time out of your busy schedule to meet with us. It's great to have you here. And my question really centers around broadband access. Curious about what the federal plan is to expand broadband access, especially in rural areas. We know that was highlighted during the COVID pandemic when we're trying to educate students who live in very remote rural areas. Do you see it ever raising to the level of the Rural Electrification Act of 1936, where the federal government really put in a lot of resources to bring broadband or internet or electricity at that time to the rural area? Do you see broadband internet raising to that level?
Kurt, let me tell you, yes, I do. And I think this president does too. And I just wanted to share a story which you anticipated in your comment. Congresswoman Sherry Bustos' father, Gene Callahan, passed away a few years ago. Good friend of mine. He grew up in Iroquois County on a farm near Milford. It was out in the country. And he said that his dad told him he will never forget the day when he turned off the hard road and got on to the gravel road to the farm and looked off in the distance and saw that farmhouse was lit up for the first time. They'd finally hooked up the electricity and all the lights were on. And his dad told him he'll never forget it as long as he lives. And that to me is an indication of what happened next. Bringing electricity to the farm in Illinois and across America brought modern farming to America and brought the best damn agriculture production in the world into reality. I think the same thing's true of broadband. We shouldn't look at it any differently. We've got to have broadband in downstate Illinois, in rural and small town areas. We cannot disadvantage kids, and we learned how badly we need it. When they need access to the internet and can't get it unless they go to sit in McDonald's or get in the library parking lot. We can't deny telehealth, which is going to be used through broadband to modernize and keep us in touch with the best specialists in the world. And we sure as heck can't attract and keep businesses if we don't have the most modern form of the internet. I think it's a bottom line, and I'm for going all out on this thing. Let's make this America's project right now. And I think that's what I'm hearing from President Biden, and I'm going to support him.
All right, thank you. Well, that was the last person on my list, but I'm going to open it up. We still have a little less than 15 minutes here. So if you have a question for Senator Durbin, now's your chance. This isn't an opportunity that comes up too often. Feel free to unmute and speak up if you have a question.
So this is Blanche Shoup from the Workforce Office of Western Illinois, and I just wanted to comment on the infrastructure bill that's being considered and the importance of workforce funding. One of the things that happened during the Obama administration with the ERA funds, the investment ended before all the training could be completed. And so we had many companies who were willing to hire and needed skilled workers, but the funding wasn't there to train everyone. So I wanted to just encourage the understanding of how important workforce investment funding is right now to train a skilled workforce while we have folks not employed so that they are ready for the jobs when the jobs are open.
So I'm sorry I didn't catch your name. Say your name again, please.
Blanche.
Blanche. Okay. Thanks, Blanche.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up. So let me ask you this question. If I am unemployed and I'm drawing unemployment benefits and I decide I want to sign up for your program, does it jeopardize my unemployment benefits to do so?
No, it does not. We have training programs that are approved. And as long as an individual goes through the training programs that we have with our funding, their unemployment is not jeopardized.
And let me
they're
ask
not
you,
required.
okay.
Yeah, I want to say, and they're not required to job search. Going to school for training for skilled training is considered their job search.
And you said there are jobs with openings now for people with skills.
Yes.
Give me an idea. Do any of these jobs pay more than $15 an hour?
Oh, sure. We have manufacturing jobs, of course, do. And we still need welders. We need CNC operators. There are healthcare jobs available. CDL licenses would be a short-term training, and we certainly have drivers.
You work with Spoon River on
I work with
Western?
all the three community colleges in my 9-county area. Include Spoon River College, Carl Sandburg College, and John Wood Community College. We work with all of them. Yes, it's encouraging folks to go to training right now.
So
That's important.
What do I need to do in Washington?
Well, I think just certainly I can't request that you support any type of legislation, but I think just from your perspective, if you can just encourage people to get the skilled trades, encourage them to go to training now while they're receiving unemployment, take the opportunity to take advantage of funds available. That's very key. I think one thing we always concentrate on adults, but we also are looking for those youth that have graduated from high school and they're not sure what they want to do.
You know, Blanche, I maybe I'm wrong, but I would think that one of the real obstacles is convincing these folks that there's a real job waiting that pays a decent wage. And that to me is critical to signing them up for these courses.
Okay.
they can keep receiving their unemployment. And if they do it, they're in a position they can transition into a decent job. I think that makes all the difference in the world. I wish there's some way I could think of immediately to help you, but that's what it seems to me.
I think your continued support for investment and training funds is critical. I think when you said for the funding that's coming to communities, it's also important the funding that's coming to job seekers and businesses will be utilized for those skills. So it's just important that you continue to be a champion.
So thank you, Blanche. And let me say to the chamber, reaching out to your elected officials and describing what Blanche just said, I think is critical. I mean, when you think about it, the bottom line is we want to create good paying jobs downstate where people will train with skills that they can use and get a decent paycheck at the end of the day. And that's the only way we're going to keep the population we have or build on it. And it's the only way that we're going to create family circumstances where they can progress to buy a home and start a family and all the things that are necessary to keep the community thriving, as we've all learned downstate. Blanche, I'm glad you spoke up. It really is good to know what you said, and I will remember it. I thank you very much. I'm going to have to sign off, and I thank you all, and we'll keep in touch through staff and otherwise. If there's anything that you need from me, you know where to reach me. Senator Duckworth would say the same, I'm sure. So thank you all for giving me a chance to have a little town meeting today with the Macomb Area Chamber of Commerce. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. We very much appreciate your time. It was great to speak with you.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Thank you all.
All right. Like I said, this was recorded. I will get it uploaded to YouTube and I will get it sent out to all of you and the rest of the chamber membership sometime this afternoon. Okay.
Thanks so much, Lauren.
Thanks, Lauren. Thanks for pulling all this together.
You're welcome. You all have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Lauren.